Now it's time for a quick history lesson. When I said this place is rich in history, I wasn't joking. I want you to meet these two volunteers at the Coos County Museum. This is Heather Christenberry and Steve Grief. These two were so knowledgeable and so kind and so hospitable, and where the museum sits, it's absolutely beautiful. It's breathtaking there on the water, and there's shops and there's restaurants. Come take a look. You mentioned that right now where we're standing, there's this area, there's history right actually in this parking lot.
4 blocks of what was once called Central Dock used to be here until about 15, 20 years ago. Central Dock was the world's busiest lumber exporting dock from World War II until the 1990s. More lumber shipped off this dock than any place in the world. But when it went bankrupt and the timber industry kind of crunched in Oregon, this sat vacant for years. When we finally looked for a place for our new museum, this was available. City of Coos Bay really helped us get the property. And now it's a booming tourist attraction.
Let's take a look. I want to see it.
One of the first things that we like to show visitors, about 50% of our visitors are actually from out of state. Highway 101 is a nationally recognized transportation route. And our museum is specifically on Highway 1 to capture those visitors. But we put a map in the floor here to let them know kind of what we are, and what should be outstanding to see right off the bat is the amount of water that comes through our county. In fact, waterways is, I guess, our overarching theme here between the shipwrecks and the Native Americans' use of the water here, and the pioneers' use of the water, and the timber industry's use of the water related. But this is a deep water harbor, and like I said, it's the easiest access for ocean-going ships on the Oregon coast.
Ah, so that's why it is what it is, because of the deep waters here.
That's right. You'll see a lot of wood in this building. I mentioned that this was a lumber exporting dock, so we had our architect honor that by putting a lot of wood in obvious places, because wood, from the days of the Native Americans and their use of the natural environment here to today, wood is just an incredibly important part of who we are.
But the walls inside the gallery, this is something that was done with the tribes. So this is one of our local tribes, the Coquel tribe. They actually, so this is what the beginnings of a plank house opening look like. And you can see that, but the walls are made out of cedar, and you can smell it in the room, and it's something we really love here on the Southern Oregon coast. That smell just reminds people of being home. And the process that they use to make these walls is something that's very unique, and it's something you have to be very skilled to do, and that's something that is very valuable to our community. We really support our local tribes, so we try to include them on all of our exhibit topics and everything that we do.
Oh my goodness. What is this? Oh, and you're gonna turn it on too. What?
So I said that we honored wood here, and we have slabs of wood as you enter the exhibit hall.
Yes.
But we also have a machine that would have been taken up into the woods and made very rough cuts. This would have been a blade, of course, and it would have gone very much faster with a steam engine behind it. But this would have been used to cut wood for barns and fences up in the hills out of.
This was mobile?
Well, it comes apart in half.
Well, right.
And we were able to get it through this large door in the museum. But it's a great exhibit because it really shows how innovative people were in terms of getting the wood out.
Oh my goodness, I have never seen anything.
It's quite an artifact, isn't it?
It's still running too,
And
so.
it still works.
And so if the engine was behind it, this thing would go.
Yeah, we had
And
to
just-
slow it down for obvious reasons. When people come to our museum, we've organized it in such a way that we have 3 major lanes. We have a seashore lane, the mountain area, the Coast Range lane, and the intertidal lane, so that people can wander around and get a general idea of the geography as well as the history here.
Reclaiming our words.
So Native American language revitalization projects are going on all around the world, and this is specifically text that was written by those 3 local tribes that I talked to you about, and they wrote this text. This is from their own words. So this was a collaboration between the museum and the tribes to help people understand more about languages. So here in Coos County, If you were living 100, 150 years ago, you were speaking up to 5 different languages to be able to communicate. So there's a trade language that everyone used, and depending on where you were and where you were going, you also spoke a lot of different dialects. Between the intermarrying and traveling and trade, there was a lot of language going on. People being put on reservations, displaced from their homes, assimilation, not being allowed to practice. A lot of those languages basically had to go to sleep for a long time. And all of the speakers, the elders who spoke those languages and weren't allowed to pass them down, a lot of them were beginning to die. So it was really important that some early ethnographers, some early anthropologists, they tried to capture those languages on things like, right here you'll see these wax cylinders. So that's how the language was first recorded, and then those were saved. And it's only in the past 20 years or so that a lot of tribes have been able to get that information, which was stored in universities and other places and different archives, and to hear those words again and to bring them back.
This is an artifact that just always makes me cringe.
Oh.
It's a 2-man chainsaw.
Man, yeah,
Try to imagine your day. You're climbing out into the woods in the pucker brush, and you're gonna cut a tree down and then buck it. And this guy on this end has his own handles, and there's a guy on that end too. I don't think I'd even want to be on that.
I wouldn't want to be. I was just thinking, that guy drew the short straw.
Yeah, right. That's probably the rookie. And look at the length of that thing, and think about carrying that around as your daily activity.
They were stronger back then.
Oh,
they were just stronger back then.
Look at the size of the blades here in the mills.
Oh, come on.
The two-man saws, the hand-cut saws. We have a lot of respect for the blue-collar ethic. And then we talked about shipbuilding over here. The Western Shore, this sign above us here, the fastest clipper ship in the world was once built in Coos Bay. It was a ship that was built.
Where is it? I'm looking.
This sign.
Oh, this sign right
this
here.
was the actual signboard off of this ship.
Off of that ship?
Yeah, it was built. It was built at the Cruise and Bank shipyard in North Bend, and it sailed to London and had a record speed from Portland to London. But over 200 other ships were built in this area too. This is the way to get all the resources exported. There were no roads here until the 1920s. We're just approaching a century of having any roads at all. We didn't have a railroad till 1915, so everything was by water. That map we talked about at the beginning, that water was everything. That's how you got things in and out, and you had to build the ships. But we had all the lumber and the right kinds of lumber to build the decks and the captain's quarters and everything you need. It was all right here. That beautiful cedar you saw in the entrance hall, the myrtle wood, they were all incorporated into these beautiful, beautiful ships.
That's impressive. Wow, look at these guys. Look at these guys. I wonder what their lifespan was back then, having to work
shorter.
Working like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to know more about the shipwrecks, because obviously they're still there, right?
There are hundreds of them. There's one exposed today at Horsefall Beach that shipwrecked in the 1920s, a century ago.
And there's different ones all the time, just depending on...
Right, depending on the weather. Yeah. We have some pretty rough winters here. We don't have hurricanes and tornadoes, but we have gale force storms, and we have a lot on exhibit about the different shipwrecks. In fact, we have maybe the most famous shipwreck was the New Carissa, which shipwrecked in 1999. Most recently, a gigantic tanker that was spilling oil, and the government did its best to try to resolve that situation. This bike was something that came off the New Carissa. And over here, this machine was a navigational machine, a binnacle that was used on the New Carissa, and it's an artifact that was saved. So we have some artifacts from some of the shipwrecks around here, and people can actually still run into them if you walk along the beaches.
And matter of fact, I can't believe how much history is in Coos Bay.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
I mean, we've been here all day trying to figure things out, hearing different stories,
right.
Hearing about what happened to the lumber, hearing what happened to the timber, hearing about this. Then now we find out as the biggest, exporter of lumber in the world for that many years. Yeah. So this is Pretty unique place to visit.
And it's important for us to have a museum to tell the stories. If we didn't have a museum that would keep the record, I think a generation or two later, people would forget all this stuff. So.